Hey, everybody. Welcome to Grilling at the Green. Fantastically part of the Golf News Network. I'm JT, your host. How's your game this week? Did you happen to watch the PGA a couple weeks ago? I did. And our guest today had a front row seat to that. Bob Harig is back. We're going to be talking about the PGA and a lot of other things that have happened since then. So, Bob, welcome. We got a full slate today, buddy.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Let's do an overview first then. How was the PGA overview? I played at Valhalla 30 years ago. Okay. It looked like a different course than what I remember. Now, part of that could have been the libations after the round 30 years ago or whatever, but
Right.
the course looked great.
Look, it looked great. It was in terrific shape. It was, none of that stuff was a problem.
Yeah.
It's just that, for whatever reason, it played too easy.
Yeah.
And that was unfortunate because, it's, I think we expect the major championship courses to play more difficult. But yeah, I argued with people, it was still an exciting tournament.
Sure.
At the end of the day, does the final score matter all that much? I mean, probably not. Um, I just think we expect the majors to be a little bit harder. And 21 under par, I believe that's the most ever under par in any major. And we had so many scores under par, and the cut was under par. And so, look, it rained there early in the week. It was soft. The way that course was set up, the fairways were wide. But yet guys who got off those fairways really struggled. I mean, so I don't know. It's a tough one. I mean, we don't want it to be the U.S. Open either.
No.
So I'm thinking, look, every now and then we're going to have an outlier scoring wise. Last year at Oak Hill, I think Brooks Koepka was 6 or 7 under. And so we kind of think it's supposed to be more like that. But it's a hard golf course. The weather was a little different, and sometimes they're just going to shoot lights out.
Well, when I hear commentators say, oh, I think 20 under is going to be the score to beat, it kind of takes you back, or it does me, to think like this is the PGA, this is a major. Um, and I kind of agree with what you were saying just a second ago. When I think of a major, I think if you get to 10 or 11 under, you've really knocked the lights out that day or that weekend,
No,
Uh,
no question. Yeah.
yeah, I really think in that terms. But when you start talking about 20 under, I start thinking of things like, the Phoenix Open, pick one, playing at Firestone, whatever. I think of those types of courses, and they're designed for that. You know,
Yeah.
they're designed for that. So, not disappointed in anything. I thought we saw some fantastic golf. I was really happy for Xander. I don't know him, but I was happy for him because
Hmm.
I'm sure he had an earful over the years of the guy that didn't win a major, that stuff. And he finally got one, and good for him. Congratulations.
Absolutely. He's been knocking on the door a lot, um and look, he hadn't won in a long time, and he's way high up there in the world golf rankings, despite not having won for a long time, which kind of gives you an idea of how consistent he's been over the last couple of years. He's been up there a lot,
Yeah.
and um so um in any case, yeah, it was a great win for him. Bryson played really well. He pushed him. It's kind of nice that nobody really lost the tournament. I mean, I know that Hovland had a chance to tie Bryson on the last hole and didn't, but he had a great final day too. And but yeah, it was I think it'll be remembered as a really good tournament.
It was excuse me, it was nice to see Bryson. He's playing much better, I think. And he seems to have his wits about him a little more these days. And you can, attribute that to whatever. It doesn't matter. But he's just, I thought he played better. His swing looks better. He's still a monster out there when he comes to hitting the ball and stuff. But it was nice to see him up there,
Yeah.
knocking on the door. There was a number of them like that I thought it was very good. And um, overall, I thought it was a really good tournament. I thought it was good from the viewing perspective. Um, there was the weekend especially had some really good viewing times and a lot of time spent on it. And I think people enjoyed it. And isn't that really what on our side of the screen, so to speak, isn't that what it's all about?
Ultimately, I think it is. I argued, look, the bottom line is that that venue has given us what, four really good PGA championships,
Yeah.
um, two of which went to playoffs, and the two others that came down to the last hole. And it's hard to ask for much more than that. It wasn't a blowout. It was compelling back nines every single time. And they had a good Ryder Cup there too.
Well, you say that, on the back nine, isn't that what they always say about Augusta too? Augusta is um won on Sunday on the back nine. I mean, that's kind of what happens. And it's good
Yeah,
to see that. It's
absolutely.
it's very good to see that. From a perspective of being in the press room with everything that happened, and we'll get to the Scotty stuff a little bit later in the show, but um what was the attitude in the press room towards the tournament? Was it uh oh geez, it's a blowout, oh geez, it's this, or is it just another tournament, or because you get different takes, and that's
Right.
why people work in the media. They're some of them are factual reporters, some of them are opinion guys, but sometimes if you follow a lot of them, which I do, you get different dynamics from things, and so sometimes it's hard to put your thumb on what's really the overview of the thing, the overlying mood, if you will.
I think the general um, consensus was that it was a good tournament. But it was obviously dogged by a lot of the Scotty Scheffler stuff. Um, you had Tiger playing. There was some chatter about um, the sort of the relative ease of the course. But I just think that depends on where you sit on all this stuff. I'm, I'm, uh, I'm one, who is more lines of, look, it doesn't matter what the score is if it's a good tournament.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we had. So it's kind of hard to complain.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And it's Justin, hometown boy. He didn't win, but he had a pretty good tournament. I think he had a great week. All the accolades they gave him around the town of Louisville, and it's Louisville, people, not Louisville, if you don't know that. I spent
Right.
plenty of time there. Uh, but that was nice to see him. I mean, he was in the mix. He wasn't banging on the submarine hatch to jump up on top of the turret there, but he was in the mix. And that was nice to see that too.
It was good that it was good that he had a little bit of kind of a nice comeback. He's not had a great year. It was a big deal to him to have a major championship in his hometown, and he played nicely. He played nicely over the weekend, and that was good.
Okay. We're going to take a break. We're going to be back with Bob Harig from Sports Illustrated on Grilling at the Green. Go figure. And I'm going to give Bob 30 seconds to think about this answer, because usually when we come back in the second segment, we ask about the travel tip. We know about that. I want to find out Bob's favorite place to eat in Louisville, because I have mine too. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Grilling at the Green here on Golf News Network and in sundry of stations sprinkled around the country. I'm your host, Jeff Tracy. We've got Bob Harig here today. We're talking about the PGA that happened a couple weeks ago. And like I said, going into the break, this is normally where we ask some sort of travel tip. Don't care about that this week. I want to know where your favorite place to eat was up there.
You know what, Jeff? It's sad to say I didn't really go anywhere all that great. Those days are so long.
Yeah.
Um, it was just more a matter of survival. No great restaurant dining for me. I was a decent ways from the course, which probably didn't help. Um, uh, you know, just logistical issues, shuttles, things like that.
All right.
So, yeah, I know there is some good dining in Louisville. I've been there before,
Yeah.
but I didn't get to sample it. I went to a Skyline Chili one night. That was kind of nice.
Oh, there you go. It's just as long as you don't tell me White Castle.
Yeah, no, I did not do that.
I'd
I
be
did
really
not.
disappointed in you, Bob, if you
Yeah,
said White
I did
Castle
not
there.
do that. Yeah.
So let's I want to talk this segment a little bit about Tiger because yeah, as you know, I'm an unabashed fan of his. How did he look? Regardless of the score, because I knew by an hour into the second round where he was going to end up. It was a guess on my part, but I just kind of watching him move and stuff. It got cooler. It didn't look like he was as mobile, as balanced, as free. He looked stiff a couple times to me. You've written you just wrote Drive not that long ago about Tiger.
Mhm.
How did he look?
Yeah, I thought he looked a lot better than he did at the Masters. But he's just not sharp.
Yeah,
And it doesn't take that much. It shows you how good these guys are, really, because Tiger can get the ball off the tee fine, and he hits plenty of good iron shots, but you're going to miss greens.
yeah,
And when what happened to him on Friday is his short game let him down. The very what it was the first or second hole he played, he he missed a green, and then he tried to get too cute with a pitch shot. He left it in a bunker and he bladed it out of there, and all of a sudden he's making a triple.
yeah.
And then he made another one 2 holes later. So what, 4 holes in, he was 6 or 7 over par for the round, and now it's done. To his credit, he played the last 14 holes and 1 under. But the first day he had a chance to shoot under par, and he 3-putted the last 2 holes to make bogeys on each and shoot one over. To me, those are the sorts of things that you do when you're not sharp. He's not competitively sharp. And there's no way to approximate it unless you play.
Right.
Yeah, he says, I'm doing it at home. I'm doing this at home. I'm doing that at home. Well, it's the bottom line is there's only so much you can do to approximate what it's like to play in a major golf tournament inside the ropes. And even Tiger is not going to be immune to that. So, but he's facing this sort of, quandary of he needs to play more, but if he plays more, he risks being unable to play because he wears himself out.
Right.
Either, too much wear and tear on the leg, or his back goes out. And, I wrote about this not that long ago. It's sort of like, okay, and then he's picking the hardest tournaments. He's going to play at Pinehurst in a couple of weeks. Well, that's not going to be an easy venue.
No.
He'd probably be better off playing the Memorial and skipping the U.S. Open. The Memorial's a smaller field. It's less players to beat to make the cut. My sense is he's not going to do that this time. He's next year, or he's going to play the U.S. Open. He'll try to play the Open at Royal Troon. If I were him and you wanted to do this again next year, I would try really hard to play some tournaments in the fall. I mean, it's obviously he doesn't need to play these tournaments for the purposes of keeping his card or FedEx points or any of that stuff, but it's just to play. And I think he needs to play. Like if he doesn't, if he waits until from the Open all the way to his tournament in the Bahamas again, and then he doesn't play again until the Genesis, then we're back on this, same hamster wheel again. And I just don't see how it gets any better if you're not going to try to play a little bit more.
Yeah, that's kind of my take too, Bob, is the fact that um back in my previous life, you could tell the people that came back from an injury or something, there's a difference between stepping in the ring, if you will, with all the adrenaline and all the distractions and all that to try to give that top performance versus, you qualified to be there. Absolutely. Tigers qualified ad infinitum for lots of stuff. But if you're not under that duress, that stress, that, as you say, the sharpness, it's a 1 in 750,000 chance that you can pull something like that off.
Yeah, I mean, you go way back to, well, go back to his win in 2019 at the Masters. Tiger had played 5 tournaments leading up to that Masters that year.
Yeah,
I mean, he that's kind of what other guys had played.
sure,
5 or 6 tournaments going into the Masters. He played 2 weeks before. He didn't play at Bay Hill, but he played, he played Torrey Pines. He played Riviera. He played in Mexico that year. I mean, he played a few times and it was good. I mean, way back when Jack, won the Masters in '86, he hadn't done anything, but he did play several times that spring. It wasn't like he just showed up at the Masters. Tiger pretty much showed up at the Masters. He played 24 holes of golf at Riviera. He withdrew in
right.
the second round with illness. Well, that was in mid-February. So you're talking like 7 weeks later is this next tournament. He did not play the Players Championship. A lot of us thought that he might. And then, okay, it's another month or 5 weeks after the Masters. It's maybe not enough time to fit in a tournament, but by not fitting in another tournament, you're going to put yourself in this position that we're just talking about right here. You're
Yeah,
trying to play against Scotty Scheffler and Xander and Bryson and all these guys who are playing and competing, if not every week, every other week, every third week. And you've got all these physical limitations on top of it. It's just a lot to ask.
it is. We're going to take another break. We're going to be back with Bob Harig from Sports Illustrated, author of the book Drive that came out not too long ago. And we're going to talk about Scotty Scheffler when we come back. Stay with us. Welcome back to Grilling at the Green. We'd like to thank the folks at Painted Hills Natural Beef, beef the way nature intended. Our friends over at Birdie Ball, they're in Evergreen, Colorado. John Breaker and his family, like that. And very easy to find us if you just go to the grillingatthegreen.com website. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, all that. If you can't find them, you can find me if you really want to. I don't know why, but we can do that. But anyway, we're talking with Bob Harig, who's a frequent guest on the show, I should say, and I always enjoy talking with him. Okay, Scotty Scheffler gets arrested. It's the first news flashes are always the treacherous and tremendous, as I like to call them, because nobody knows really what's going on. They just see him doing the perp walk in the cuffs. And then, 2 hours later, he's back on the course. He makes his tee time and goes from there. And then as things unfold, different things have happened. There was issues with law enforcement there. End result, without going into it, because I'm going to let you do that. Charges have been dismissed. It's gone. It's over with, like that. It was a terrible tragedy that led to this. Somebody losing their life. Fellow there that was either, I don't know if he worked for one of the vendors or he was a volunteer. He was going to the tournament to do something in particular, not just watch. And he got hit by I think a bus, but
Yes.
and that kind of caused all this traffic delay. And if you've been out there in those Kentucky back roads, big traffic delays are not a thing you relish, put it that way. So kind of walk us through, Bob, if you could, what happened there and how that kind of did it. And my other question is, did it kind of cast a pall on the players themselves um, during that, during that day, during that morning?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly made for a surreal atmosphere. There was some chatter that maybe they should have stop play that day, or not played because, there was a fatality, basically on site.
Yeah.
But what they did was they delayed the tee times, and the Scotty thing, that it became funny in some circles, which of course is not a good thing either, because it all stemmed from the fact that somebody was killed.
Yeah.
That's why there was such a police presence there. That's why there was a traffic tie up. Obviously, they're going to investigate. You're going to block off the road. That's what they do. And it might have been better in hindsight had the PGA, told all the players, look, we are not going to start today until 11 o'clock, and just delayed it big time
Right.
until until uh until they knew that that they could get that situation rectified out front. Not that this should have happened anyway, but maybe some of that would have been avoided. Like Scheffler apparently didn't even know that there had been a fatality. The players had been alerted, I think, to some sort of traffic issues, but he's going to the golf course. He's planning to get there at 6 a.m. He wanted to get some treatment. He wanted to get in the fitness trailer, get some work done, maybe a exercise, get warmed up. That was his plan. And the death occurred at a little after 5. I mean, it probably wasn't public yet, and so it just led to a tough situation all the way around. And as I think we've seen, I'm not sure I'm not sure he handled it all that right in the beginning. He probably defied an edict from a police officer, but yet I'm not sure it should have escalated to the level that it did. And there was sure a lot of wasted energy, time, money. I mean, Scotty can afford it, but imagine the bill he's going to have from that high-priced Louisville attorney.
Yeah.
All over all this, when really what probably should have happened is the police officer, should have figured out that, okay, he's allowed to go in here. Maybe he gives him a stern talking to. Maybe he even writes him a ticket, and that's the end of it. But to drag him out of the car, handcuff him, and then all this goes on, and of course he didn't know it was a player, but yet that's the other disconcerting thing. If that was you or me, we wouldn't have been getting off the hook on this.
No.
And so it leads this leads to discussions outside of golf, but the whole thing is troubling, and it's really a shame.
Yeah, it is. And believe me, I'm a very much a law and order kind of guy, but I saw some of the other videos that were just released. This was released through the Louisville Police Department. And the officer hit him with his flashlight, it looked like, because the
Yeah,
window was down.
right.
He, and didn't have the body cam on and all that stuff. And that's what really led to the dismissal of charges there. Plus, like you said, having probably the number one or number two criminal defense attorney in state of Kentucky on your side, and the governor and the mayor making phone calls for you. So, and I'm not dissuading Scotty Scheffler, but um, it was just an unfortunate situation, and very little, especially after Scotty got arrested, very little was directed of the press was directed at the family or for the family of the man who was killed.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
was I don't think I saw a picture of him till maybe later that day or the next day. They had an image of him, and this is a gentleman that was killed, and it's like we kind of got up and wrapped up in all this superfluous stuff here, and if there was a humorous part to it, I guess the part was when Scheffler said that after they booked him or when they were booking him, one of the officers said if he wanted the full jail experience, which kind of made me scratch my head for a second. Wait a minute, don't go there. And then they gave him a bologna sandwich or something. But
Right.
other than that, like you said, Bob, I think it just could have been handled differently and better.
Yeah, I mean, there should have been some recognition that that was a chaotic scene out there, and that yet some people were being allowed in,
Yeah.
and obviously he had the markings on the car that should have been a clue. And, okay, in that moment, look, it's 6 a.m., it's raining, it's dark. There has to be some understanding that there's going to be some mixed signals. One other policeman had apparently, told him to go, and then this one told him to stop. So he's like, he's probably a little impatient. He said he'd been in traffic for a half hour. He wants to get in there.
Yep.
He's a little bit. He's got a little stress going on himself, and just to think that it got to the point where you're actually putting this guy in handcuffs, for that. I don't know. It's just a shame to me. It just didn't need to happen. The
No,
way we've learned it, it did not need to happen.
no, it really didn't. And it's unfortunate like that. I wanted to go back to Tiger just for a minute because there's a question I forgot to ask you, Bob. So my apologies. Some people online, you and I follow each other on Twitter and stuff like that, but there's people online throwing barbs at Tiger saying he's taking up a spot. Somebody else could have played if he would have withdrawn.
Mhm.
You know, like that. I don't really have mixed emotions about that. I just figured that Tiger earned that over the years. And he set the gold standard for so many things in men's professional golf. Be quiet in the cheap seats is what I kind of look at.
Yeah, listen, I think that narrative is really a poor one. It doesn't see the big picture at all. First of all, the PGA, you know, it's a lifetime exemption for winning.
Yep.
John Daly was in the tournament. Did anybody say that about him? John Daly's close to 60 years old. And he probably has no business playing. There's been some other past, Rich Beam,
Yeah.
is not competitive, doesn't play on the Champions Tour much. He's a broadcaster for Sky. He played, and I no nobody should begrudge him. He earned it. There's several guys like that in the PGA. It'll happen again at the U.S. Open. Tiger got a special exemption for the U.S. Open. Well, Tiger has 9 USGA titles. This is the first time he's not exempt for a major since the 1996 PGA. I mean, he's earned the right to get a few freebies.
Yeah.
Jack Nicklaus got 8 special exemptions into the U.S. Open. Arnold Palmer had 5. You mean to tell me Tiger doesn't deserve a handful also if he wants them? And obviously the Open is the same thing. He's exempt until he's 60 years old. So, if he wants to play there for the next 10, 12 years, that's on him. And I think he's earned the right. It's his call, and I can't imagine a single player out there going, man, I'd have been in that tournament if it weren't for him. You know, Figure out another way to get in.
Yeah.
That's
Like play better. Is what
yeah,
they say.
that's just like a poor way to look at it, when you consider what he's done and again, all these tournaments, the Masters, that's not taking a spot from anybody.
Right. Right. Right.
So that one's different. Obviously the PGA has a fixed field. In theory, if Tiger doesn't play, that's one spot for somebody else from somewhere. It's true, but it's also like, I just can't imagine that anybody really holds that view and thinks that that's the way to look at that.
No, yeah, it's a bit of a stretch, really.
Mhm.
And I'll fall back to what we've talked about before, Bob. I don't care if Tiger is playing poorly. The TV ratings go up. It's like a God-given decree. Tiger's playing, TV ratings go up. Okay. Now they're not as high at times as they were in his heyday. I'll grant you that, but people still like to watch Tiger play. Period. Anyway, we got to take another break. I'm going to be
No
back with
doubt.
Bob Harig from Sports Illustrated, author of Drive, right after this. Don't go away. Welcome back to Grilling at the Green. Thank the folks at Hammerstall Knives and Heritage Cookware for being part of the show. We've got Bob Harig with us today, as you know, from Sports Illustrated, ex ESPN guy, I should say. They don't let you come
Mhm.
by for a charity visit once in a while, do they, Bob?
I don't know that they would keep me from it, but we all parted on good terms.
So I know you don't cover them, but what do you think about Nelly Corda? I mean, she's on a heater. She, well, except for today, she shot a
Yeah,
10. She shot a 10 on a par three, I think. But
yeah,
that's a U.S. Women's Open. That's a different discussion. But that young lady is just smoking it out there.
yeah. Look, won 6 of her last 7 tournaments coming into the U.S. Open, and that was kind of a shocking result to shoot 80. Obviously, I think when you make a 10 on a par three, it's going to shake you up a little bit. She shot 45 for those 9 holes, and
That's a
and you know,
Jeff score right
yeah.
there.
I mean,
Yeah.
look, I think most of us would shoot 55 if we made a 10 on a hole.
Yeah.
Is unfortunate because a lot of hype. But look, they're human. Um, my sense is this is a 1 day blip. She's going to have a hard time making the cut, but I'd be very surprised if she didn't come back with a good score that on Friday. Look, it's a hard course too. I mean, the early scoring was not low. There was a bunch of scores in the 80s. It looks like there was some trouble on that 12th hole where she made the 10. In other words, like the maybe a way that was set up, it was like it was a very small margin for error. There was a
Yeah.
bunch of double bogeys already.
Right.
And that happens at a US Open sometimes. So it's too bad though, because I think it would have been good for the game for women's golf to have her in contention over the weekend.
Yeah. Well, she's I keep an eye on her. Of course, one of the reasons is because we have a LPGA tournament that is played in Portland every year, and I've been able to cover her the last year or so there. And uh, last year she didn't win, but she was in the mix, and she just looked very tired because they'd been all over the world. By the time that tournament comes around in September,
Yeah.
they've been going everywhere, and she's a fighter. So
Yep. This is
I
a thing she's going to have to probably fight now is, just, there's a lot of, there's just a lot of demands on her time.
yeah.
The LPGA kind of needs her to step up and be out front, like that was what Annika did. That's what Nancy Lopez did. That's what Kari Webb did, Lydia Ko to some degree,
Lexi.
Thompson,
Yeah.
and it takes its toll and it's like a tough balance. And, it's not always a worse thing either to have a little bit of a reset if that's what's going to have to happen here. But the thing that's crazy about it is she just won her last tournament. Like, it wasn't like she was just playing bad,
Yeah.
and that's why I really think it's a blip. I think it's a 1 day thing. And, I saw where she went to the range afterwards. She was working on something, and, it's hard to watching that golf swing. It's hard to imagine that she ever misses a shot. So
No kidding.
looks pretty good.
Yeah. Looks better than Bob or Jeff combined there.
No doubt.
I'll tell you what though, we'll make it official here. I'll bet you a White Castle, anything you want on the menu that that um uh Nelly. God, I kept trying to put two words together the wrong way. That I bet she makes the cut. She
Okay,
made
good. All right, I'll take the other side of that. But you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if you win that bet
Yeah. She might
because,
not. That's a long haul to get to the top, but I think she'll make the cut.
yeah, I mean, look, when you talk about as we're speaking now, I don't know where the leaders are, but if they're only a couple under par and she was 10 over, I mean, in theory, the cut could be 6 or 7 over.
Yeah.
So all that means is it's not all, but I mean, if she can shoot 67 on Friday, she could make the cut.
Yeah, she can make the cut. And
And
I
that's
get White
certainly,
Castle.
yeah,
Woohoo.
that's right. I'm happy to treat you.
Are they still $5 for $1? Or I don't know what they were. They're back in those days when I was back there a lot. There was their dollar menu was pretty significant as far as volume. Wasn't
Yeah.
quality, it was volume. I'll put it that way. We got about a minute left on this one, Bob. So I want to do this real quick, and I promise I'll only keep you for about 8 minutes for an after hours this week because we usually get long on that. Give us your prognostication for coming up to US and the Open.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to not like Scheffler at the US Open. I mean,
Yeah.
He, despite all this that's going on, he managed to finish top 10 at the PGA, tied for eighth, and he was tied for second at Colonial. His game hasn't slipped any. It's hard to not like him. So I also kind of look for a guy like John Rahm to get back on track. I got to believe that there is a high level of motivation for him right now. He had a bad Masters. He missed the cut at the PGA. It's the first time, I think, in 18 majors he had missed a cut. He's heard the heat about going to live, and he's a great player. And I have a feeling that since the PGA, he's put his head down and he's trying to get after it.
Yeah, I think so. I think, well, he is one guy, that because you see it on the outside too. He's got a fire burning inside that boy, and other guys, Scheffler, he's got a fire, but his demeanor is fairly calm, stoic, doesn't get rattled too much. Same with a lot of them. With Rahm, bring on the fire extinguisher is what I would
Yeah.
say. Anyway,
Yeah.
okay, we're going to get out of here. Bob and I'll be back for just a couple minutes in after hours. But Bob, thank you. It's always a real pleasure that you take time to be with us on this show.
Happy to do it, Jeff. Thank you.
You bet. We'll be back next week with another edition of Grilling at the Green. Until then, go out, play some golf, have some fun, and most importantly, be kind. Take care, everybody. Hey, everybody. Welcome to After Hours here on Grilling at the Green. I conned Bob. He's a very busy guy. And I say that sincerely, but to stick around for a few minutes, because I know he's got deadlines and stuff. The reason I want to do this in after hours, because it doesn't go on the radio aspect. It goes just over the internet part. During the PGA, people that you and I both know, I'm not going to mention anybody's names, were just taking terribly cheap shots at other folks, other journalists, other players, what have you. Live versus the world. And a guy we both know called you names on there. And I mean that some of that comes with the territory in which we live in, but I think he's cheap. I think it's tawdry. I think it's not very classy. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, listen, I've been living this for 2 years, 2+ years. All I'm trying to do is the job. And, in my world, I've caught it from both sides. Why are you covering live? Why are you writing about those guys who took blood money? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Well, because it's here and you can't ignore it. It's some of the best players in the world that are playing there. It's caused a divide. Part of it is covering the animosity that exists. You can't ignore it.
Right.
The other side of it is if you cover the PGA Tour and you extol any of their virtues, well, then the live people attack you for, oh, you're a homer for the PGA Tour. You're carrying Jay Monahan's water. Well, they play tournaments too. There's a lot of great players on the PGA Tour. I'm going to write about Rory. I'm going to write about Jordan Spieth, and I just think the grievance that we see with this, it's just exhausting.
It is.
I had I very innocuously wrote a note that I put on Twitter, a week or so ago when Adam Scott missed the cut at the PGA Championship. That Monday happened to be a cutoff date for the OWGR top 60 in the world getting into the US Open. And they added a bunch of players on that Monday who were top 60, who were not otherwise exempt. Adam Scott has been in the top 60 for 5-6 years. He fell out by missing the cut. He fell to 62nd. So as of that moment, he was not exempt. I wrote a little note that Adam Scott's played 91 straight majors. He has not missed a major since the 2001 US Open, every major since he's played. That's all I did. Hey, 91 straight is in jeopardy. He's fallen out of the top 60. He's playing Colonial. He's playing the Canadian Open with a chance to get back in because there's another top 60 cutoff on June the 10th. And if he doesn't make it, he's entered qualifying. And I had a bunch of people on the live side of things who hate the OWGR, like just start ripping on the idea that, oh, he would never be in there, that it's a corrupt system and this and that. I'm like, that has nothing to do with it. I was sitting there simply pointing out that
Yeah.
his major streak is in jeopardy. And by the rules, this is how you get in. Top 60 OWGR. Yes, if live guys were getting ranking points, there's a good chance that Adam Scott would be 6 or 8 spots farther down because you'd have guys like Bryson. Actually, Bryson is ahead of him. He moved ahead of him. But you'd have guys like, maybe, there are several live guys ahead of him in the OWGR anyway, even though they're not getting points for live. But you'd have some other players, maybe like a Leishman or, Moronk or, just some guys that are, Patrick Reed, he's fallen, David Puig. Those guys are outside looking in kind of because they're getting no points on live. Certainly a guy like Taylor Gooch would be much higher up.
Sure.
That's another argument. The bottom line is those are the rules right now, whether you agree with them or not. And, to sit there and make it about that when all it was, and I get that kind of stuff all the time. And it's just incredible to me. Like you go out of your way to be mad about something. What does Adam Scott and the OWGR and maybe falling out of the top 60 and missing the US Open have anything to do with whether or not the OWGR is correct or not? The point is that's what they use, and it's not changing anytime soon. And so here we are.
And wasn't it the live powers that be were really trying to lobby for a while to get into the OWGR?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I've written about this, I've talked about this. I don't find that the OWGR has handled this very well either.
Mm-mm.
But there is a process, and it usually takes more than a year. The OWGR has recently accredited 2 very minor tours. In both of their cases, it was like an 18-month process. They want to make sure that you can exist. They want to see your system. Obviously, Live has other things that they probably don't need to look at. Obviously, they've got the money, things like that. They've got the players, they have the system, but they want to see you operate. And the OWGR has told Live that they don't think that their format, 54 players without hardly any transition from week to week and without enough with not enough promotion and relegation at the end of the year, is worthy of points. Now, whether or not you or I agree with that, that's not the point. That's what they think. So, okay, if you're Live, you can try to comply. If you're the OWGR, maybe you meet with them and tell them, yeah, this would work or this wouldn't. The fact that the two sides have not gotten together to work that out, Live has actually pulled their application. And so, well, the other thing Live did was they thought they should have been accredited from the beginning. That was a mistake. I also think they should have probably investigated a little harder to figure out what do we need to do. I think they just thought they were going to get it. That hasn't happened, and so here we are. I actually think they should figure it out because those guys are not going to be rocketing to the top of the OWGR by playing in live events. They're going to get less points just mathematically by playing in live events. But I would also make the argument that a guy like Taylor Gooch, who's now like outside of the top 500 in the world, all right, winning those 3 live events last year, finishing second in another, having another couple top 10s, well, it might not be worth what a PGA Tour event is worth. It might not be worth a DP World Tour event. It has to be worth something.
Sure.
I mean, and so if the OWGR is telling you your format doesn't fit, figure it out. Like, I just don't think it would be that hard for them to have weekly qualifying. I think they could probably have more players come and go at the end of the year. It's sort of is, I think it's also on the OWGR to tell them what would work and what wouldn't. Like, they shouldn't make live guess, you know,
No, no, no,
you
no,
know.
no.
So yeah, it's just unfortunate that this is the vitriol that's out there still. And look, this is the situation. We've got a bunch of golfers that are getting paid by the Saudi regime. They make a lot of money, and whether you or I like it or not, it's happening. You can't ignore it.
Right. But I guess some people might say, Bob, it's like you just touched on it. You got some golfers out there. They're playing on a tour that's 54 holes. They are making boatloads of money. Why is the world golf rankings really that important to them?
Well, it's a good point. I would say for some of them they don't care.
Yeah.
But I would also say for the guys like Bryson and Dustin Johnson and a guy like Joaquin Niemann is a good example. My sense is that when Joaquin Niemann, who's like 22 or 23 years old, a very, very good player, won the Australian Open. He won the Genesis in 2022.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think he felt when he went there, they were going to be getting world ranking points. He risks not playing in the majors now. And I think that bothers him. And I don't blame him.
Sure.
A guy like that wants to play in the majors. They have a young kid who's out there named Caleb Surratt who signed, went to live right out of the University of Tennessee. He's trying to qualify for the US Open next week. Good for him. But he's nowhere in the world rankings because he's not playing any world ranking events.
Yeah.
And how's he ever going to get in the majors? So I get where they want to have the points. And yet the trade-off is when you only have 54 players, you're going to get less points in a full field event. They also aren't going to give you points if you finish. The OWGR put a new thing in place this year, a no-cut event. The bottom 15% do not get points. So that takes away the whole cut argument. Like the bottom 8 or 9 guys in a live event won't get any OWGR points. It was going to be minuscule anyway. Not right now
Right.
they won't get that many. Okay, fine. Like basically OWGR has discounted a lot of the things that have been said against live. Oh, their fields are too small. 54 holes is not enough. It's not a real tour. Those are not the impediments. The impediments are the lack of turnover from week to week, the fact that it's the same guys playing against each other, and the lack of promotion and relegation at the end of the year. And to me, with their money and the ability to go to more players, they could fix this.
Right.
And why they don't, I don't understand that. I don't get it.
Well, as they used to say in Catholic school, it's a mystery. So,
Right.
Bob, I've kept you 2 minutes over my 8-minute allotment here, so I appreciate that. And good discussion today. I thank you, and you're welcome back anytime. I'll reach out to you after we get through the next couple majors and see where we're at. Okay.
That sounds great, Jeff. Thanks again for having me.
You're welcome. We'll be back next week with another After Hours here on Grilling at the Green. Till then, take care, have fun, go play some golf.